And we are back. You are chatting with John P. Today, we are going to be talking about the top watches for the summer at under $5,000. Now, I live in Miami, Florida, where generally it's kind of summer here year-round, so I do forget about the seasons, though I do come from a place in the world where there are seasons, so I know that I can appreciate some of these for what they are for, and they're for outdoor activities, and they're for summer outdoor activities, and we're going to talk about them for the guys that had to put up with the snow this summer and now want to splash around in the water a little bit. But first, I'd like to thank you for liking and subscribing. I do appreciate it. It's about to be Memorial Day weekend, so maybe you're watching this over the weekend, so take that extra second and subscribe. Also, check me out on Instagram, TheRealJohnP, and fair warning for those of you in the comments that will mention this, 2 of these, possibly 3 of these, depending, are on DelReyWatch.com. So if you like some of these watches, make sure to check out my website, DelReyWatch.com, where you can see more information about these watches that I did not cover here, or possibly add it to your collection if you so choose. So let's jump right into it. The first on this list of top summer watches under $5,000 is Omega Seamaster Professional. Now, I'm not going to choose one specific color that I would say is the pick here on the list, but I would say probably the most iconic Omega Seamaster Professional is the blue wave dial. Now, the blue, depending on the type of light and depending on how old the watch is, can look incredibly light and beautiful in certain sunlight that you're probably going to be receiving in the summer. And of course, it is a dive watch. Not only can you jump with it, splash around in the pool, it's a sports watch, it's made for that type of setting or environment, but there's waves on the dial. So everything about this watch has just always screamed summer, springtime activity sports, and I don't know that James Bond, the fictional character that wore this watch in a lot of the movies, actually ever swam with it. I don't know. Are there any Bond fans out there that can tell me if James Bond swam with the Omega Seamaster Professional? But you can, right? It's a dive watch. It has that dive bezel. It's got the helium escape valve, so for some reason you're diving very deep in your summer endeavors, your helium can escape, and your watch will not get messed up. So, moving on to the next item, which is going to be a more affordable or more approachable watch, but I think it just belongs on this list because of the gorgeous dial. It is the Halios OC4 in this seafoam bluish green color, and there's a very avid watcher of the channel as well as a very good client at Del Rey Watch, and he had one of these, and I had the pleasure of handling it. It's typically a watch that I necessarily would not add to my collection because the whole micro brand scene, there's a lot of options out there. Unless you spend time researching the micro brands and learning the ins and outs of the manufacturers, you really can easily overlook some really great options, and this Halios OC4 is one of them. Now, they've got a couple of different combinations with this watch. There's a few different bezels. I think there's a dive bezel and there's a GMT bezel. There's also a few different versions of the watch, and that's something that you find in micro brands a lot of the time, especially the micro brands that do a really great job for their customers, is the watches can sometimes be tailored, or there's several variations. So I know there's going to be some Halios fans out there in the comments because this was a very popular watch that sold out instantly, I believe, especially at that price point. So leave in the comments below which version of the watch you have, or if you know all the options, I'd love to hear it. Though I can tell you that the watch is a great value for $700. It's very well constructed. The case is solid and it's hefty, and I don't want to say it's necessarily Omega level, but a lot of the parts of the watch are certainly Omega and Swiss level. For example, the case construction is very nice. It's got the sapphire crystal. The bezel has very tight action if you have the rotating bezel version, which I believe is the one that I had played with. And as well, if you pair this on a nice rubber bracelet, the rubber was very supple, and it's just an overall great summer watch. Maybe you don't want to dive into the water or go on the beach and get sand in something like a Rolex Explorer 2, or maybe that's just the level of watches you like, the micro brands, and a little more exciting because they're changing things, it's new, it's novel. Great watch for you, and I could easily see myself wearing this. Now I kind of want to buy one of these now that I'm making this video, so if you have one to sell, I think I would buy it. moving on to the next one. Now, this one we do have available at Del Rey Watch, and I personally held this watch, and I can say I was very impressed by the quality. And I'm not saying that only because we have that, because I actually held it before we had purchased this watch for sale at Del Rey Watch, and I can say I was completely impressed and surprised as well. So this is the Cuervo y Sobrinos Robusto Mangiare Buceador 1882. Now, basically, once again, this is a dive watch, so it's got the summer feel. It doesn't have summer colors on it per se. There are some red accents here or there, but it does have a little bit of a darker of a profile. But what I think really makes this watch interesting is two things. The first thing being, it's just incredibly comfortable on the wrist. So for summer, you're active. Once again, you're at the beach, or maybe you're on vacation, or you're just relaxing with your friends, having a drink, or some family, just on the weekends, enjoying the weather or the woods. This is so comfortable on the wrist. The rubber strap is better than it should be at just under $3,000, as well as the case. It has these lugs that taper down and curve over the side of your wrist that just make it very comfortable on the wrist. At least for me personally, a lot of sports watches, they kind of flop around sometimes because they're generally a little more flat. But with this particular watch, it just curves and hugs the wrist so nice and beautifully. And when you pair that with really excellent quality case construction and ETA movement, as well as the bezel. Now, the dive bezel on this one, it's not your typical, aluminum or stainless steel bezel, or maybe even ceramic. It's got like this sapphire coating to the bezel, which gives it like a watery kind of look to it. It's really interesting. I would check it out if I were you, because there are some other brands that do this, but it kind of floats. The bezel on the inside, the numbers, it looks like it's almost in some type of liquid, but it's not. It's, obviously it's a sapphire glass type material or coating, and so it gives you this really unique and modern presence that, paired with honestly a pretty good quality watch, I think it's a really great choice for the summer. And once again, it's one of the watches that I said to myself, like, wow, I could actually wear this. It would be a very comfortable option. And also, Cuervo y Sobrinos, their whole mantra used to be, and still is a little bit to this day, though people don't really smoke as much anymore, is that they're kind of paired with cigars. So, you got the name Buceador, which is a cigar term, and they've got the Cuban heritage, or inspiration rather, where the original manufacturer, the jewelry store that sold Cuervo y Sobrinos during the earliest days, I think 1960s and 50s, you've got this like cigar guy feel. And if you're one of the cigar guys out there, I don't smoke them really as much as I used to. I was into cigars quite a bit back in earlier times, and I can tell you that they come in a humidor, and it's just a great watch if you're like a cigar guy. You've got the humidor, you relax with it, enjoy the weather, and that's kind of what that whole community of guys is all about. So great option there. I'll move on to the Rolex Explorer 2 Polar Dial. So the white dial Rolex Explorer 2. Now, this one just makes the cut. You will need to get this pre-owned. But what makes this such a great summer watch is it comes on a bracelet, so the bracelet can be worn in the water. It's a sports watch. It's a bit of a tool watch, of course, but just the white dial, the pure white dial, the 16570, it's just so white. And when you look at the dial, it's very expansive, and it just gives you like a fresh feeling. I don't know how I would totally describe this, because it sounds a little bit weird now that I'm talking about this with you. But when you just look at it, so I've got the 550, which is the reference prior. This is the black dial, and it gives you a very rugged tool watch feeling on the dial. But when you have the white version, you look at it, it's so crisp, it's clean. The later examples have the black painted surrounds on the markers, as well as the hands. And it just looks like a watch that's made for summer. Leave in the comments below if you can possibly elaborate on that for me. This is a very popular choice for watches in the summer, and I want to know, if you own this watch, do you wear it in the summer? And also, if you don't think it's a summer watch, leave in the comments below as well, but I don't think anyone's going to say that unless you're trolling. Lastly, now if you watch the channel, you've probably heard my opinions on Breitling before. I think that there's a distinction between what the company does and the company as a whole, as well as their watches. I'll say that their watches, they still make great watches. Their watches are very high quality, some of the best case construction for the price point in the watch business. And of course, they have their own movements now, and they've always used classical workhorse at a movements prior. So they really do a great job at producing the watches, you know, regardless of what I may have talked about in terms of the way that they distribute their watches. There's a watch guy and there's a business guy, and I'm talking strictly about the watches here. And the Breitling Super Ocean Heritage 42 with the white dial, which, full disclosure, we do have available for you for the summer months. It's just it's, in my opinion, it's just a gorgeous watch. You've got this white dial. It's a little more creamy. It has a little bit darker colors compared to the Rolex Explorer 2 Polar. And of course, once again, it's a sports watch. If you put this watch on a rubber strap, it's just a knockout for summer. It's a watch that I could see even myself diving through the water. Not that I'm a diver, but maybe laying next to the pool down here in Miami. And they've got different versions of the watch, so you can also pick some more sportier or a little more eccentric colors should you be interested in it. They've got a green bezel as well. That's kind of interesting. But the white dials are just in for summer. And once again, you can't go wrong with a powerhouse like Breitling. They're known for sports watches, right? Like, Breitling does sports watches, professional watches, and the Super Ocean Heritage 42, absolute knockout. But anyway, guys, I hope that you enjoyed the top summer watches under $5,000. I tried to sprinkle in one or two watches that I felt were a little bit more approachable so that we can kind of cover everyone's bases here. But of course, I had the classics like the Omega and the Rolex 2 for the die-hard Omega and Rolex collectors. I hope you found it pretty good video considering the summer months are coming up. Or if you're leaving some comments below, I'd like to hear if possibly it's summer, but you wouldn't be wearing these because you know, it might be summer here, but wherever you are, it's still cold, or perhaps it's snowing, or it's not the summertime. If you're in a climate or a region that's not what we're talking about over here in the US, please leave in the comments below what you might be wearing instead. I'd love to hear, as well as if you have any other watches geared up for your summer months where it's the same climate or maybe a little different. I want to hear what you're wearing this summer. I just find it interesting to hear what other people have on the wrist for certain times of the year as well as occasions. Anyway, guys, it's Memorial Day here in the United States, so we're going to be closing down for a little bit here at Del Rey Watch, but I wanted to release this video so I can be with you here this holiday long weekend. Thanks for watching, guys. You have been chatting with John P. Ciao.